You don't give a fuck when you land or not, just let him go. Don't worry about it, you're gonna be a shitty fight, but you gotta let punches go.
Last round.
You can't wait until they get, if you miss it, bang, go right back. And don't take 30 seconds to start another punch.
Alexander, I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody like me. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable.
Look at that combination. And the turn.
I kept telling you he had no punch, he couldn't hit, he's swinging like a sissy, he's missing, let me see your box. I hadn't started damping yet. A tremendous sensational first round, and Terence gets hurt. Terence got stunned. Tackle was stunned early in the round. Great first round. Incredible. Perhaps one of the best in middleweight history.
That black guy, he hits hard.
Fire!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hands of Fire Boxing Talk. I'm your host, George Dampierre, video reporter and writer for RealCombatMedia.com. And today is just a plain and simple steak and potatoes show. Really, two things really being discussed here, mainly Deontay Wilder's victory over Chris Arreola, and it being fight week of Terence Crawford versus Viktor Postol. Big matchup this Saturday on pay-per-view. And, go down my prediction, the breakdown, and all that. So let's jump into it. Now, Deontay Wilder scored a 6-round knockout over Chris Arreola. To no surprise to anyone, really. Unfortunately, came out with some battle scars. One being, well, it seems about 2 injuries. There was word of his hand being broken and also a torn bicep, which is pretty damn unfortunate because that pretty much means he's done for the rest of 2016. And I'll go on to, the after effects of everything later on. But, to go through the fight, pretty simple. First round was very slow, very dull. Deontay looked to have some pretty good speed on him. Not that he, doesn't really have much, but maybe it was just more evident here. But looked really good, working the jab. But again, there was moments where he got pretty damn wild trying to, I don't know, I feel like one of his weaknesses, of course, being the wildness, but it's really what brings out him being so wild and reckless is his instinct fighting. Because, if you can get into his space, into his range, and, you're throwing, he, will literally throw the kitchen sink at you to, get out of there. More or less of a defense mechanism. And speaking of defense mechanism, there was a good few parts of the round where, Chris Arreola was able to get in on the inside, and, land some shots. Now, had that been a more stronger puncher, who knows? It might not have been so easy. And Chris Arreola was pretty much a pedestrian through this fight. I mean, he really didn't offer much. I mean, his corner, kind of tried to beat it into him. I would believe after the 4th round, I believe, is when he was knocked down, just toward the final 15 seconds. His corner told him, look, you're not going to win a boxing match. You got to get in there and bust this dude up. And, he tried. But, just really outgunned. The height and, of course, the power was just too much to handle for him. And, I rewatched the fight, basically just to, not just to analyze the performance, but also to try to pick out when the exact moment, of, when these injuries occurred. There's 2 moments in particular that I can recall. It was, actually just around I want to say it was a little bit before, he started doing the little dancing, with Chris, and then landed the right uppercut. Because he really only threw his right hand about 4 times in that round, and there was a moment where he was like I mentioned before, Chris Arreola getting into his range and putting in some work to the body, like you're supposed to with an opponent on the ropes, and Wilder, waited to try to fight out of it. He ended up throwing a punch toward like the high back of Chris Arreola, kind of like around the left shoulder blade. And I think it was either one of that moment where he after he was able to get Arreola off of him, and to wait for Chris Arreola to make a move on the inside, it was there that he was holding the hand a little bit, kind of like cuffing it. So it was one moment like that, and then a little bit, let's say, what round was that? I want to say that was around the 3rd. Or was it the 4th? No, that was the 4th. I just said that. But again, there was another moment where he was clutching his right hand again. But it was definitely evident in the 5th round that he hurt something, because he only threw 2 right hands. Was very left-hand dominant. And to his credit, he worked through it, got Chris Arreola out of there. Maybe it would have been quicker had the right hand not been injured. But that's Monday quarterbacking, really. But let's go on to really what this does for not Chris Arreola, but Deontay Wilder, because, like I said, he looked really good in certain aspects. The wildness of Wilder is still evident, and it's going to be really hard to try to seal that crack, because in all honesty, I kind of feel that the lack of composure is what kind of brung this on in a way, just at least the way of delivering the punch, that kind of brung that injury. And, more to, actually to think about the future of this whole injury is, like I said, he's going to be done for the rest of 2016. He was talking about, after Anthony Joshua's victory over Dominic Breazeale, that, he really wanted to get a match with Anthony Joshua. And I mentioned on that post-fight podcast that it was, the real reason why he was so adamant and anxious to get that fight right then and there was because he knew that Joshua was still pretty green and still developing, and he wanted to catch him now while he can get the credit for the just credit for it in the years following. And now that kind of just, it really hampers his chances with Joshua, which already seemed like a pretty even fight. Personally, on my take, I do see it being a pretty good fight, and I see probably both fighters being hurt at some point in it. I kind of gave Joshua the edge, just being a bit more fundamentally sound and composed. But now, like when you talk about the time off, any inactivity for a fighter is just crucial. I don't care what's going on during that off time. I mean, even Mayweather, who has a gym in his house, still had rust on him coming out of retirement, So, and on top of that, with Wilder, it's a fighter was really still growing. You're watching new things added to his game every fight, and just like this fight, you saw much better boxing skill, the better, like I said, the speed was more something to note for me. But then again, it was Chris Arreola, so, maybe that's, putting too much stock into it. But yeah, again, this heavyweight field, man, is wide open for the taking. And there's really, I would say, about a good 5 name that sticks out to me. Luis Ortiz, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, who's really just pretty wishy-washy to me. I mean, I don't like the way he talks sometimes, and that's not really the provocative things that he says, but more or less just the fact that I'm a loose cannon and I could just quit tomorrow if I wanted to. You never know what's wrong with me. I'm a fucking psycho. Who? I think he's like trying to he's trying to bring out a certain Heath Ledger version of the Joker out of him. Like he's like trying to, I think he's trying to make himself more interesting than he really is. And I don't like that. So let's see, who am I missing? I said Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, Tyson Fury. I'm not going to say Joseph Parker yet, who fought today and won. He as well, I feel like Joshua handles him easily. And I don't want to say Klitschko yet because I really got to see how he looks in this rematch against Fury. So maybe 4. If there's no one that really, I guess, steps up and fills that spot, unless David Haye has something in store for all of us. But I highly doubt it. He's, been beating the shit out of part-time fighters. So nothing much to say toward that. Now, something that I've been like I at least prefer to talk about with this episode was the Viktor Postol and Terence Crawford fight, the unification bout for the super lightweight 140-pound title. Viktor Postol being the WBC champion and Terence Crawford being the WBO champion. This fight's on pay-per-view, and for the hardcore, it's deserving, and it really puts me in a hard place because on one hand you have 2 of the best 140 pounders out there fighting, and more or less really 2 of the top tier fighters of, I would say between 140 to 160. That might be a bit of a stretch on the terms of Viktor Postol, but I'll get into that later. However, these are really good fighters. Pretty damn good. On the other hand, you got Terence Crawford making his first pay-per-view appearance. It's really been long. He seems to be almost like a lab rat of PR, like how, like he's really like a PR rat of HBO, and they're really trying to sell him, man. And they did a really good documentary on him last week, and I feel like he has to do a little bit more like local, well not local, but more mainstream stations other than just HBO. He's got to get out there, and again, I hate the fact that a guy has to be an asshole in order to be noticed as a fighter. I don't like that notion at all. Like Mayweather, like I had to play the bad guy to get people to watch me. Like, well, yeah, that's because some of your fights were kind of boring, and you needed to do that. So, but Terence Crawford, on the other hand, does his best talking in the ring. But he's not a media darling that they really want him to be, and on that hand, it's almost kind of not really warranted of being pay-per-view. Like I said, however, this is a really good fight, so I'm going to be paying for it and watching it. $60, back when, I was ordering fights damn near every 2 weeks, fights like this were $50. So, I don't know. I don't know if inflation was just hit me like that, but come on now. fuck? Anyway, let's get down into this breakdown, man, because like I said, I'm personally super excited for this fight. I truly like both of these fighters. Terence Crawford, I'm going to be rooting for him to win, but in the back of my mind, I kind of see Viktor pulling this off. Both fighters are 28-0, and Viktor Postol is coming off of his huge win over Lucas Matisse, in which some were questioning Lucas Matisse's heart, being a quitter, quote unquote, at the end. But to that, I think people weren't really noticing the punishment that Postol was doing to Matisse up to that knockdown, because yes, while he did quit on the first knockdown, he was getting quite a bit, even when he was doing his best works in the, let's say, first to fifth round. And Postol just really turned it up on that 6th and 7th. And yeah, he was being strategic by trying to stay away from Matisse's power early, and like most power fighters kind of want to do, except I would say maybe Gennady Golovkin, who a lot of power punchers just some try to look to get you out there early, and so he tried to withstand that, try to see if he would get gassed out. And some were saying that he was holding a lot. I didn't see that being the case. I thought that while he did what he had to do. Ain't nothing more than that. And yeah, man, and just really beat up Lucas Matisse. I don't think people really even. I don't know. I guess maybe people just were just too harsh on Lucas Matisse because of that. He's not a quitter. I mean, this guy's one of the tough guys out of Argentina. So, yes. Now, Terence Crawford is, HBO's little darling that they are trying to get, more exposure. So this was their, this is his HBO pay-per-view debut. And, man, they couldn't pick a better fight to at least get him. Well, let's just say they didn't sucker the fans by giving him a showcase pay-per-view fight. This is his biggest test, and it's now on pay-per-view, which really could be, in a way, when you think about it, can almost be a make or break in the sense of stardom for Terence Crawford. While he's a very talented and crafty fighter, it's really the star aspect that they're trying to get him polished up for. Terence Crawford, of course, is coming off a pretty good string of victories. Hank Lundy, I believe, was his last opponent, scoring a 5th round TKO. And then before that, I believe, was Thierry Jean, then Thomas Delorme, and can't remember exactly who was before that. I want to say Ray Beltran, which would probably be let's say Ray Beltran is more of a barometer fighter. He's definitely solid, but if you can get past him with no problems, then you're probably pretty good. And that was the case for Terence Crawford. But it seems that the only knock for me that Crawford takes is the fact of, while his opponents, the name can be pretty good, it's, for example, I'll talk about his Gamboa fight. Now, that was, his big moment, right, for like pretty much his breakout moment on television. But what was clearly noticeable in this fight was the size difference. And, I kind of, slipped off a little bit when it came to Gamboa with his career. And it wasn't until, maybe later on that I realized, I was like, I was at least reminded that, Gamboa was a 126 pounder, or at least that was his best weight. And he was really moving up to 130. And, while he was a great, quick, speedy power puncher for that weight, he was really outgunned. Not just on the weight, or at least on the height and size of Crawford, but apparently on the weight too. So the credit that I gave him for the Gamboa fight kind of diminished a little bit. And again, the same case with Hank Lundy, another small fighter, which is why, for me, this is why it's so dangerous of a fight for Crawford. Here he is for the first time or at least for the first time fighting a guy, at the 140-pound weight, or at least, should I say, a legitimate 140-pounder. And on top of that, a guy who has physical advantages over him. Terence Crawford is typically the taller fighter in most of his bouts. That's not the case here. Postol is the longer and taller fighter. Pause, meaning his arm length. So let me make sure I got that out there. But yeah, Postol is the bigger fighter. And on top of that, he's really fundamentally sound. There's nothing like, how was I going to say? Like, almost like in a way that Gennady Golovkin is. There's nothing really that shines about him other than the obvious power. I'm talking about as far as technique. But Viktor Postol is a very fundamentally sound fighter. His punches are crisp. He uses his length very well. And on top of that, you have the offensive prowess teachings of Freddie Roach on top of that. So, he's... And what I believe what makes him more dangerous than anything is the fact that he's kind of a mystery still at some point, or to a point. Because, yeah, we've seen the Matisse fight, but that was really only one fight. We don't know the full utility belt that Viktor has, So that's probably a real scary aspect if I'm in, the Crawford camp. So that's what makes everything so interesting. I mean, it's easy to try to say, well, with Terence Crawford's great offensive abilities and the fact that he can switch makes him more dangerous. Well, the unknown is what makes Viktor Postol dangerous. And on top of the actual physical advantages he has. So, for me, man, it's hard, man. I can't even go with a pick confidently. But you know what? That's what this show's for. I gotta, make a pick. Like I said, I think I really want Terence Crawford to win. I hope he really deserves that breakout moment. For a legitimate one. One that no one that can take away from you. On the other hand, Postol is just so sharp and really fights the perfect style for his size. And again, he's not a speedy or slick fighter at all by any means. But he's efficient. And, like most of these, at least star Eastern European fighters, they're pretty fundamentally sound. Damn. I feel like I should make $100 bet in Las Vegas because they have Viktor Postol plus 550. So, they're really giving him almost no chance. It's very strange. For a fight that's this close, it doesn't make any sense. That being said, I'm going to go with Viktor Postol. It's going to be a very, very good competitive fight. High stakes chess. And, but an exciting one. These guys aren't, single-minded when it comes to defense. They definitely want to get their punches in and get some work in too. So, Viktor Postol, split decision. Split decision for Viktor Postol. But it's just, I see this being a really good fight. And, man, I cannot wait for this fight. More so than I really did for these past few fights. And that's including Canelo Khan. I'm probably more excited for this fight than, who is it? Keith Thurman and Sean Porter. So, Terence Crawford, good luck, buddy. I hope you pull it off, but I got to go with Viktor. All right, now, while that is the main event for the night, there's also the undercards featuring some fighters that some of you guys might be familiar with. Oscar Valdez, 19-0, featherweight, will be fighting Matias Carlos Adrian Rueda. Well, if that's Portuguese, it might be Rueda or Brazilian. But yes, probably doesn't matter. Oh, wait a minute. Yo, I completely slipped on this Mateus guy. So this is for a vacant WBO featherweight title. Oscar Valdez, you guys might remember on the undercard of Pacquiao Bradley 3, who looked pretty fucking sharp. Remember I said this was like a showcase for all the top-ranked fighters. And he was one of the sparkling stars of the night. Oscar Valdez with tremendous speed and just furiosity, like almost like a young Manny Pacquiao. And sharp, man, just almost perfect in a way. But Mateus Carlos Adrian, he's 26-0. I really don't know much about this guy, to be honest with you. There's nothing I could tell you. But like I said, he's 26-0. Who exactly he fought, can't say for certain. Comes out of Argentina. And let's see. Doesn't look like he has one fight outside of the United States. Or outside of Argentina. And that fight was against Manuel Herrera. So, he's an unknown fighter as well. And that being said, now I saw the record and I got a little cautious. 26-0. But we've seen this game before, so I think we know what's going on. Oscar Valdez should be able to pull off the impressive victory and gain a WBO title, featherweight division. Also, more of the more well-known names on this undercard. It was Jose Benavidez against Francisco Santana. Jose Benavidez, of course, is more famous for his really, more or less, I feel more remembering him from all those Ellie setback videos and the in the wild card gym. You know, he was always the guy that people were telling to look out for. And we remember his lately more of his wins from Jorge Paez Jr., the TKO win, and also Mauricio Herrera in a unanimous decision that still some people have a problem, or at least don't really feel that he won. Me, I really wasn't scoring the fight, but, you know, I was a little surprised that he did get the victory. But we come to an end of another episode of Hands of Fire Boxing Talk. Hopefully you guys, if you guys are listening to this podcast for the first time, please be more than welcome to listen to more of my podcasts on mixcloud.com. I'll also post a link there. And on YouTube, where we are now officially part of the YTBC. So, yeah, check me out. Peace out, guys. Keep your hands up.